What's going on, everybody, and welcome to a review video on something a lot of you have asked me about. Over the course of doing a lot of e-bike videos, a lot of people have put in the comment section, how do you transport your e-bikes? Well, I have a truck, so most of the time they're just in the bed of my truck, but not everyone has a truck. So what other options are out there if you need to transport one or maybe two e-bikes? And I happen to have an example of one option here next to me. This is the hitch carrier from Himiway. And I'm going to show you today how this rack holds two Himiway Cruisers or one Himiway Escape, because it's a lot heavier. And I'm going to put each bike off and on the rack so you can see how I load them, how they fit on there. We're going to go over everything about the rack. And I guess two things that I want to tell you right up front are, number one, that I have a truck. So this is the first rack I've ever used, first bike rack I've ever used. So I don't have anything in my mind to compare to. And the second thing is that this rack is here courtesy of Himiway. I did not purchase the rack. They sent me this rack for the purpose of doing review videos and putting some information out there for you guys to help you in your buying decision. So that's what we're doing today. So although I don't have another e-bike rack to compare to, and I can't tell you which one to buy, I can hopefully deliver as much information as I can to you today about the Himiway rack so you can decide if it's one that you want to consider. So let's get started. All right, everyone, here is the e-bike rack from Himiway. And before I start loading bikes onto this rack, let me unload some information onto you and some details. So this rack costs $399 from Himiway. And as far as assembly, it arrives in this box here, and it's in pieces. So you got to put it together. It probably takes maybe 10 minutes to assemble this once you figure it out, because there are no instructions in the box. There was no instructions on the website. Couldn't find any instructional videos. So I just looked at the picture to get it put together, and I'll give you a really quick explanation on it. So I'll put up a picture on the screen of all the pieces in the box. So you've got your three main bars, the one that comes from the hitch, and then you've got the two crossbars that hold the bike. You've got the two plastic wheel chocks that hold the front wheel. You've got the two plastic mounting spots with the straps on it that hold the rear wheel. And then you've got like 4 brackets, and those brackets are what mount the crossbars onto that main bar coming from the hitch. And of course there's some nuts and bolts in there too, but the way this goes together, you can see the finished product right here. So if you need some close-ups of what it looks like, so you know how to get this thing assembled. But essentially the main thing you gotta do is put the crossbars on, which you just use the brackets right here with the threaded. There's 8 threaded bolts. Let me flip it upside down. It might be easier to see the underside of it. So you can see how they kind of just clamp those crossbars on there. The yellow markers are so you know where to mount it on there, so it's got enough space between the bikes. So your 8 threaded bolts will go in these right here and clamp those crossbars on. The 2 like lag screws with the washers, that's what goes in the underside of the wheel chock. They just go right in here. And that's kind of all your bolts that come in there. I mean, there's really not that much to assemble because these just slide on the ends. And let me flip it back over. Well, actually you can see right here. So this piece that holds the back wheel, it just slides on the bar there. And there's 2 other little bolts right here. They go in there, and that's what just keeps this thing from sliding off the end. It prohibits that sliding off. So those 2 little tiny bolts, that's where they go. Everything else is already put together. You just put on those pieces and you're done. So let's flop this thing back down. As far as the piece that goes into your trailer hitch, you can attach it using the pin here, or they also give you this bolt. This seems a little bit more, if I was going to go a longer distance, I'd probably use this. It seems a little bit more secure, but there's not all that much assembly on this thing. You can see the arms. This is what holds the front wheel down, and these just slide. You just pinch that with your thumb and it slides up and down there to adjust. What else? You've got an adjustment here because there's 3 different positions the rack can be in. It can be straight out like this, holding the bikes. It can be tilted down so you can access your rear lift gate or your tailgate, and it can be tilted all the way up, folded up, if you're not using the rack. All right, what other questions? So how much weight can this rack hold? This rack is rated to hold 2 Himiway bikes, so it holds 145 pounds. So you can only put the 2 cruiser bikes on from Himiway. If you're going to load the Escape bike, it only holds 1 of those because that's a heavy bike. It's like 91, 92 pounds with the battery in it. So You cannot put the Escape and a Cruiser on. You could do 2 Cruisers or 1 Escape, or I guess whatever combination of bikes you have that don't exceed 145 pounds. Now the rack itself, according to my scale, weighs 44 pounds. What are the questions? Do I have to remove the batteries to put the bikes on there? Yes, I would remove the batteries. Himiway recommends you remove the batteries. Just, you don't want to be approaching that weight capacity. So batteries probably weigh like 10 pounds a piece. So you want to take the batteries off for sure. You don't want that extra weight on there. And you probably don't want the batteries jiggling around on there as you drive. So yes, remove the batteries from the bikes. Now, will this rack fit your vehicle? Well, does your vehicle have a trailer hitch already? And if so, does it have a 2-inch receiver? Because this Himiway rack is only for 2-inch receivers. They do not make any smaller or larger ones. So if you don't know what I mean there, it's the inside diameter of your trailer hitch. So you got to have a 2-inch receiver. They don't make any other sizes in this rack. So if you have a hitch and it's 2-inch receiver, you should be good to go with this rack. All right, well, hopefully that answered a bunch of your questions. If I missed one, put it in the comments and I will do my best to answer. But let's get some bikes up on this rack. All right, we've got 2 Himiway Cruisers loaded on the Himiway rack. This is what it looks like. So they appear to have enough room up there. I mean, they're not really touching each other at all. And they feel stable, they feel secure. I mean, they kind of wiggle a little bit side to side, but they don't feel like they're gonna pop out of here because you've got this bar over the front that holds the front wheel locked down in place. This just telescopes and you clamp it down. And then the rear wheel is just clamped in with this strap here. And you can move this thing side to side on the rail to get it underneath the back tire. So that feels secure. It doesn't feel like they're going anywhere. They both fit on here nicely. There are some challenges though with this rack that I'm gonna point out to you. But here's just kind of a overall around view of everything. So let's talk about challenges on this rack. So loading and unloading is a challenge on this for one person, because I was doing this all myself because I wanted to see what that's like. So the black bike in the back, the bike that's closest to the vehicle, is harder to load because you're either fighting around the part coming out of the hitch or you're fighting over top of this other crossbar. So I found the inside bike to be harder to load. I don't know the best method for getting these on there. I mean, you can pretty much just grab a hold of it and muscle it up and set it down in there. Or you can, pull the back brake and lift the front wheel in the air and set the front wheel down inside the wheel chock and then lift up the back end and put that inside the rear holder. That's probably the easiest way to do that on the outside bike here. On the inside bike, you couldn't really do that whole lift the front wheel thing up. The part coming out of the hitch is in the way. So it was quite challenging to get these bikes in here. You're pretty much, any way you go about doing it, you're gonna be kind of awkwardly manhandling 60 pounds up in the air. So I guess maybe that's my best advice for loading these bikes is don't do it by yourself. Get someone to help you, and even if it's just to stabilize one of the bikes, while you lift one end or the other. So it's definitely going to be easier to load this with 2 people, unless you're pretty able-bodied. I mean, I'm pretty able-bodied. I wasn't gonna not get these in there. I mean, I'll find a way to get them in there myself. But I'm thinking about someone who's 75 years old and has a bad knee or a bad hip or a bad back or whatever ailment they can't just deadlift 60-something pounds 3 feet up in the air and position it gently into a rack. That's going to be hard. So team lift, find a teammate to help you get these in there. So that's loading and unloading. Hopefully add some clips in there so you can see that. The next challenge I'll talk about is, well, it's one of the features of the rack here. Let me get a close up. Here is the mechanism that allows you to tilt this rack. So you can see we're in the straight out position right now for carrying. This is the notch this little silver thing would tip up, and it would go into this notch, and that would be if the rack was folded up and not in use. And you can see if this, you pull the lever and this comes out and down, this spot right here is where that metal piece, silver metal piece would hit, and it would be in the, the tip down position for if you wanted to open your rear hatch or open up your truck tailgate. You pull the lever and it tips down out of the way. That way you can access the rear of your vehicle. Now, unfortunately, I gotta be brutally honest here and tell you that was not easy to do as a one-man show, trying to, you know, release this lever right here to allow this rack to tip down. Because let's pause and think about it right now. You've got 120 pounds of weight out on the end of this rack, and when you push that lever, it's just going to go crashing down. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I did my best to come in here and just kind of straddle this bar coming out of the hitch, and I grabbed with my hand up in here to try to hold the rack. And, you know, I pushed this lever, and, you know, I mean, it's too much weight. You can't hold it. So the bike just went crashing down into the, you know, the tipped out position. And doing that by yourself, that's a two-person job for sure. That's unfortunately a feature that I wouldn't be using. Now you say, okay, well, if you're not going to use that tilt down feature, can you open your tailgate right now and get in the bed of your truck? Well, a little bit. I mean, if I open the tailgate, you can see it'll hit the front bar up there, and I can get that much into the tailgate. So it does need to be tilted out for you to totally open your tailgate, but you can still get in there. Now, another thing about the tilt feature is, okay, so once you pull the pin and release it and it crashes down, if there's no one there to catch it, you got to tilt it back up. That was the next challenge. It's like, okay, well, now how do I get this thing back in the upright position? Because you basically got to just approach the back end of the thing and bend way down and just, you know, squat and deadlift the 100 and whatever 20 pounds back up into position. So again, it's not ideal. That the whole tilting mechanism thing, which sounds like a great idea, where you're able to access the back of your car, in real life use, it just doesn't work as slick as you are thinking in your head, I guess. So does it work and let you get into the back of the vehicle? Yes. Is it smooth and easy? And no, not unless you got two people. Maybe two people would probably be fine. All right, well, that is the cruiser bikes up there. Let's get the escape bike up there so you can see what that looks like with the smaller wheels on it. All right, so I just tried loading and unloading this escape bike about 12 times to try to figure out what would be the best way to get this bike off and on this rack. It's super heavy. So number one, definitely take the battery out. But here's, I guess, the easiest method I found. Come up with your own, or better yet, get someone to help you. But kickstand up, I just grab the rear brake and pull the front wheel up. And then kind of work it towards the front wheel chock there and let it drop down in. Now I hold the front brake just to keep that wheel secure, and then I'm going to reach down and grab right here. That's the best spot I found where you can get enough lift out of it to get it high enough to get it in the rear wheel thing. So like this. So now you got it in there. Secure the front wheel. That. Now you can do your back. And the escape bike's in. So there you go, escape bike in, fits just fine in there. The wheels fall, you know, roughly in the same spot as the cruiser bike. Looks like be about the same distance between them. And this little telescoping thing here does shrink down low enough to hit the 20-inch wheel, so no issues there. And you know, it's pretty much the same thing. It's kind of, it feels wiggly back and forth, but it doesn't feel like it's going to pop out of there at all. So I think I mentioned before, if I was going to go on a long trip and take these bikes, I mean, I'd probably throw an extra ratchet strap on there, or a couple bungee cords or something, just for extra stability. But the escape bike, it's a little bit harder, I think, than the cruisers. There wasn't as many grab points, and it is a heavier bike as well. You got to factor that in. I mean, with the battery, and it's like 92 pounds, it's probably like 80 pounds without it. So it's best off, I think, having someone help you get bikes into this rack. But that was how I managed to get them in there myself. There you go. If you're going to be hauling the escape bike like this, remember, it's one bike only. Can't throw a cruiser on there with it. You'd be exceeding the weight capacity of the rack. So if I was getting this set up to transport, I'd, you know, fine tune some things, slide this a little bit back, get it underneath the center of the wheel, and make sure this isn't, the strap here isn't on a bind from the spoke of the mag wheel there. Get everything that lined up nice and straight. The front, you know, this piece, you just push this button right here, and that's what allows it to telescope up and down, and it's got the hook that goes over the front wheel. But it's pretty slick how it works, and it, you know, it does hold two cruiser bikes. So if you got his and hers cruisers, this rack would work for that. And I think that's about all on the e-bike rack from Himiway. What other questions you got? What did I miss? What do you want to see? I can report back with more information if you need it, or put your questions into the comments section. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. And I think that's all for today. So I will of course leave a link to this rack from Himiway in the video description. That way if you want to go see the availability and the purchase option and read some of the other specs and dimensions on it, you can see those there. All right, well, as always, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. And if you did, do me a favor, consider hitting that subscribe button and the like button, and check back for more review videos, and check out the e-bike rack from Himiway at himiway.com. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching.